Hi there. Welcome to the From Lab to Launch podcast by Qualio, where we share inspiring stories from the people on the front lines of life sciences. Tune in and leave inspired to bring your life-saving products to the world.
Welcome back to another episode of From Lab to Launch by Qualio, where we introduce you to today's innovators in life sciences. I'm Meg, your host, and today we're excited to welcome Mariano García-Valiño, a four-time entrepreneur and CEO of Axenya, one of Newsweek's world's best digital health companies. He's built and exited firms worth billions, blending tech, data science, and human-centered care to transform healthcare across the globe. Mariano brings deep insights into scaling companies, AI and health tech, and the future of innovation in Latin America. His Amazon #1 bestseller, Inedible, explores the curious resistance of the healthcare sector to the software-led transformations that we've seen in other industries. He's also an experimental art photographer. Mariano, thanks so much for joining us today. Let's start with your book. What do you think the healthcare world is, in your words, inedible
Hi, Meg.
compared to other industries like finance and
Yeah,
transportation?
yeah. So the phrase obviously comes from that famous Mark Andreessen's phrase of software is eating the world, and somehow healthcare has resisted that progress for a long time. And what I believe is that several things actually combined to get there. A portion of that is that healthcare, for good reasons, is very regulated, so it takes a while for things to change, and you have to do it in a safe way and things like that. And also, healthcare was designed 50, 60, maybe 70 years ago. That's when the first health plans actually started in the US and across the world. NHS was founded around the same time. This healthcare was designed mostly to take care of uh, of infections, of very acute diseases, things that you very clearly understand that you understand very quickly that you have them, and you have very clear symptoms that drive you to the doctor and get you there. And this was very successful for a long time, and we managed to gain like 30 years of life through that system. And that has of course many good things, but the bad thing is that now we have time to develop other diseases, and those are mostly chronic diseases. So 85% of the expense today comes from chronic diseases. And chronic diseases are very different, right? You don't realize that you have them. They develop over time, little by little. You don't have any symptoms that will drive you to the doctor. So what ends up is you actually go to the doctor too late, and the doctor will be there, will be help you, and we've become very good at treating chronic diseases, but we haven't become very good at preventing them. And despite we have education and other factors, it's very difficult for people to actually understand diseases that are so multi-factor, and that you don't really know, that your body doesn't tell you if you're going in the right direction, right? But now we do have some tools that are able to do that, and I think that we've seen them come to life in the last few years. Things like health monitors, or things that you can wear all day long and take data, and very recently, an AI framework on top of that would allow you uh, to take care of all these variables and understand what are the variables are driving you to the to that place. And some companies, mine among others, are taking advantage of that, and we're seeing very promising results. So we are seeing people going more to the doctor, but spending less because they go there earlier, and overall, we're starting to see a little bit of digital transformation in healthcare, which is very past due and very necessary. At this point, healthcare is costs are skyrocketing, like 2.5 times inflation in most countries. And if we continue with that, we won't be able to pay for them. So we need this desperately.
Thank you, Mariano. That's such a great illustration of the problem. In your opinion, what ingredients do healthcare companies need to get in place? What do they need to get in place to be modern, tech-led, and digital? And what do you see as the biggest hurdle to transforming this industry?
I think the biggest hurdle is as usual is incentives. The way we created incentives made a lot of sense for when they were created, like in 1940s, but they don't make a lot of sense now. So think about, and I'm not saying, no one incentives work in mysterious ways, right? It's not that people are evil and they're trying to, do bad things for you to you for money. But if you're a hospital, you basically make money of people staying in the hospital. So your incentive and all the way you think about your processes and all that are for you to stay there and do studies and things like that. If you think about your doctor, if you're disease free, he makes no money. If you're sick, he makes money, he or she, and uh, and that's definitely something that is wrong. I'll give you some more subtle examples. So for your health plan, for example, they know that if they fund whatever an obesity program, they eventually that will be good for their members, and it will be less expensive, right? Because obesity drives a lot of expenditures over time, but that happens over a long period of time, maybe 5, 10 years. And what happens is people actually change health plans within that period of time. So there is a factor there that says, okay, I understand if I invest money in obesity prevention, someone will save money down the road, but not necessarily us. So we don't have the incentive to do that. Brokers, for example, that sell large companies health plans, they make a percentage on what the health plan costs. So definitely they want for them, it's better than the health plan costs more and not less. So it's better for the people to be sicker in a way. Although I don't think that they think exactly that way. But
Mhm.
but those incentives are very strained into the system. They're very difficult to get out. So in healthcare in general, in health tech, half of the problem, maybe less than half of the problem, is finding the product that would actually do something clinically. And finding the right spot in the value chain where someone would be willing to pay for that, that's a lot more complex. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing now. Companies that are coming out in the market with products that sometimes are fantastic clinically, but they cannot find the right spot to actually get there. We need to transform a little bit of our incentives in order to do that. And this is not new, by the way. I mean, I'm almost paraphrasing Michael Porter in 20 years ago, talking about value-based healthcare, but 20 years ago, he saw the problem. He couldn't give us more solutions than regulation or education because that was all there was. Today we have AI, we have data, we have other things that you can start to do that. But unless you change incentives, nothing is going to change.
Yeah, there has to be something motivating that change.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mariano, can you tell us about Axenya? You started the company in 2020. What kicked off that journey for you?
It was frankly, I consider my fourth company. So I was very motivated by curiosity, by understanding, why haven't we used data and very incipient forms of AI at that time. And I started looking at diabetes, and I found that two-thirds of the diabetes cost is not really a medical problem. It's technically an information problem. So it's someone that it's driving a little bit of limits, and eventually bumps into a problem, but there's a huge portion of time where the person can do something about it and go back to the road, but they don't understand it. They don't know that they're doing that. So we started with a software that basically monitored people remotely, and we would go with well, I was going to say AI, but it was really more algorithms at that time
Mhm.
that basically tell us, it looks like this, and this one, are going to have trouble down the road. Why don't we send them to the doctor earlier? And just by doing that, we were able to at our first clinical study, we reduced the chances of person having a heart attack by something like 15%, the chances of people dying of diabetes by something like 20%. And I was like, wow, this is incredibly powerful, right? It's very, very simple to do and very cheap, and it's very, very powerful. We bumped into incentives there, so we tried to sell that first to the patients. It was very difficult to do, on a patient by patient. It's very fragmented, very difficult. We tried with the plans, and the plans were saying us, we understand that, but they're not going to be our patients by the time we actually have to pay for that, so it doesn't make sense. We eventually found the right spot with employers, and which is what we do now. We found out our employers pay, the employees will stay with them, well, on average like 7 years, but in their mind forever. So they are much more willing to spend money for them to be to eventually save the money later. And what we found out also is that it's very difficult for employers to understand all these things. So they didn't want a software company that came and said, this is what we're going to do for you, and if you allow us, your data, then we'll do that. It was very difficult to explain, and they found it very difficult to do it. So what we end up doing is we put everything together into a platform. We bought a broker so that we can sell them their insurance plan, and then we can optimize that plan for them and save money, hopefully over time. To do that, we have to change the way brokers actually made money, because the way brokers make money is a percentage of whatever you spend. So we changed that into a percentage of whatever we save at the end of the year. And so we felt that confident that we could do that because we had the software that could do that, and that's how we started. And that's the journey we are now. It's been like 4 or 5 years, but it took us about 3 to understand how to do it.
What a powerful switch, though, of changing from I think the saying is a ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So I think what a powerful way to shift that behavior and the model of the brokers to really change kind of the industry little by little.
Yeah, and once you do that, it's incredibly powerful. So one of our clients, our largest clients, has like 20,000 lives. And we monitored, I think it was 2025. We monitored something like 1,000 patients from them. And those 1,000 patients actually captured something like 60% of the total cost. And because these things are normally a very small amount of patients that actually account for most of the cost, we managed to lower their costs by something like 40% for those individual patients. And the interesting thing is we did that sending them more to the doctor, not less. We actually send them to the doctor something like 7 or 8% more. Only that because we send them before, we were spending 50% of the money that we spent before in each of procedure. So it's a very tricky problem, but when it works, the results are really amazing.
Absolutely. Well, can you walk us through your plans for 2026? Where is Axenya going next?
Yeah, we just closed a round of 12 million, and our logic is this: our company is a data company. The more we understand about data and the algorithms that go with that data, the more differentiated we will be, and the better our results will be. And there are like 2 variables for that. One is you have to have the right algorithms and the right way of looking at data, and we believe there we have an advantage over the rest of the market. The other thing is you have to have a lot of patients, because the more patients you have, the more data points you have and all that. So our focus this year is mostly adding more patients. We are at 100 and something now, 120,000 patients. And we plan to reach kind of 1 million patients by month 36. So we'll see. We are three months down the road of that of those 36, and it's going well, but it's a long time. That's our main focus for today. When we finish that, we're focused in Brazil. When we finish that, we want to try to expand that into other countries, namely the US, probably.
Amazing. And congratulations on that funding. I know that's no small feat getting that secured.
Not in this market. No, it used to be easier.
Yeah, there have been easier times, definitely.
Yeah.
Mariano, what roles do collaborations and partnerships play in your work? And can you share any exciting projects that you have underway?
Yeah, so the way we do it, we basically we you have to pick your battles here. So the battle we picked is we take care of the data and the analytics of that data, and we basically use the infrastructure that there's already in the market. Of course, you could potentially not do that and own everything and all that, but that takes a lot of capital, and it's very difficult to raise that amount of capital to do it. I think some companies, especially in the US, are like Kaiser Permanente is doing this all inside, and of course they're a huge company, maybe they can do it. We don't do that. We partner with hospitals to actually have our infrastructure there. We partner also with other companies, so we see us like in a horizontal company, like more of a distribution channel for the system, and a smart distribution channel. So we can allocate the right product to the right patient, but we don't go into each of the products. So we have also partnerships for people that have whatever obesity programs or women's health programs and things like that. The advantage that they have by going through us is, bueno, first we actually are closer to the clients than they are normally. But I think the other thing that is interesting in healthcare is that there is a very negative correlation with the people that actually go to those programs and who they need them. So the people that actually need their programs are normally last in line, and your programs get clogged by people that are very health conscious, and of course, if you offer them whatever, a blood pressure program, they want in because they're pretty health conscious. They want to do that, but normally those people don't need them that much. The people that actually need them actually are not that fast at going those sales. So the other thing that we do is we actually choose the people where that actually would benefit the most and allocate the programs there. So we save the amount of resources that normally would go to the people that actually want them more. It's a little bit of the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So if they squeaks, we probably don't want to give them that. We probably want to give them the ones that is silent.
Yeah, that makes lots of sense. From your perspective, Marina, what is the main challenge entrepreneurs face in the life science industry given our current, climate, and how do you tackle it?
I think fundraising was very difficult for healthcare. I think health tech had a little bit of its time a few years ago, and then it went silent. Many companies went bankrupt during that period. It was very difficult to raise money. It still is. The the cycles in health tech are very different from tech. But at the beginning, people were getting funding from the same people. So you have to compete with companies that can make money faster than you. I think that the advantage of healthcare is that eventually your clients are much more sticky if you prove that you can add value, but it takes more time to actually get them. So for companies, normally the big issue is, how can I monetize that fast enough so that I can show that the product is viable. And that was a hard thing to get for a long time. I think, this past year or year and a half, I think people are getting more hooked onto health tech and the role of AI plays in healthcare. So it's easier now to raise money, but I think it's still, building a company in a way that is going to be sustainable, whether you can raise a lot of money or whether you cannot raise a lot of money. It's a big thing for health tech. I think very different from traditionally healthcare, but from traditional tech where you were, burning money for ages, and because it was so obvious that you were getting traction. No one tell you anything. I think in health you have to prove that you can make money.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes there are lots of hurdles in doing that, as we spoke about
Yeah.
earlier. What lessons from your journey with Axenya would you pass on to excuse me, aspiring life science entrepreneurs?
I think that in general, I mean, I think that you have to find a problem that it's big enough, and that's not very difficult in healthcare, but but surprisingly, when you look at the problem from the perspective of science, they normally become very small, and you see a lot of companies that are doing incredible products, but for a very small base. So it's going to be very difficult for them to raise the money to actually do it. The other thing is you're going to fail a lot. And then that's probably not only in healthcare, but in healthcare in particular, you're going to fail a lot. And you don't have the luxury of failing fast because this whole thing about moving fast and breaking things, it just doesn't work for healthcare. If you break things, you're going to kill someone. And the other thing is you're going to have to go all the way through registration again. So going through registration, all that takes a lot of time. So you have to find a way of failing smarter so that you learn more rather than failing faster. So it's a little bit more tricky when you do that. So I don't know. I think it's, I'm sure that everyone believes that their own sector is particularly difficult, but healthcare is particularly difficult, really.
Yeah, with all the regulations and requirements and the impact to the patient, it's
Yeah.
has its unique challenges.
Yeah.
Mariano, what excites you most about the future of your solution and the healthcare industry in general?
I think what excites me more is that this is one of humanity's biggest problems, right? We're talking about an industry that is 10 trillion. So to give you a perspective, that's the same size as energy or a whole of tech. And so it's a very large problem. We know that there are inefficiencies there that are huge. Maybe 50% of the total that we spend is inefficiencies. If we were able to reduce inefficiencies to zero, we would be able to cover the whole of the world with healthcare, which at this time it's about only 50%. So and frankly, it's so critical. The way costs are going up is so critical that many countries won't be able to pay for healthcare very soon. And so so I think that what excites me most is that we may find a way of actually having better health for everyone if we do it right, and or at least we may solve the problem of very high costs that will be impossible to do. So I think that at the end of the day, it's about that. It's about solving a large problem with a big impact.
Well, I can be very excited with you about bringing healthcare costs down. That sounds amazing for everyone across the world.
Yeah.
And better access to, I imagine, will come with that. If the costs are lower, will come better
Hopefully,
access.
hopefully, politicians said they have their own agendas, but
Yeah.
at least it's possible.
Yes. Yes. Can you share a moment in the company's development where you had to make a tough decision and what was the outcome for you?
Uh, yeah, like every day. I think that one of the things that was very difficult for us was as I mentioned before, finding the right spot to commercialize the product and to monetize it. And at that time is where we bought a broker so that we could piggyback from insurance from with our digital products. And it was very difficult to get. It was 2022, and there was no venture capital pretty much, and it was very difficult to get the money for an acquisition as well, because most people said you're too small of a company to acquire, and it's not in the playbook, and no one does that, and so it took us a long time. I think that I remember I went to San Francisco and the Valley in general to get for money to get money. I interviewed something like 120 VCs, didn't get one single dime, and it was painful to actually do it. I think mostly we were able to do it by renegotiating the purchase and getting payment terms going forward, and by putting money of our own pockets. Eventually I invested, I don't know, a couple of millions in Axenya, basically to be able to do that. And that was what actually made it work. So we got one more investor just out of saying, I'm going to put the first million, you guys help with the rest. And that was tough, but I think fundraising is always difficult. At least in my experience, it's always difficult and it's always very stressful.
I admire your tenacity in that process. It sounds like that was a lot of rejection. So hats off to you for
Yeah,
continuing through that.
yeah. You have to get used to rejections.
Yeah.
Frankly, it's the only thing that makes you survive.
Now, Mariano, how does quality and compliance thread into your work, and how do you maximize the quality and integrity of what your team is doing, especially when you think of the large data sets that you're managing?
Well, one of the good things in healthcare is you have no choice. You have to build with perfect quality, or you're just not legal. So things like privacy and things like that, you have no choice. I mean, it has to be embedded into the process. I think that in other areas in the company, it's always tough. It's always tough to actually build with quality first and having things, uh, you know, I always tell them, we're very good at taking things and not to 90%. It's very difficult to get them to 96, 97, 98. And in part of that is that tech in general doesn't take things to 95% before they launch. They launch at 70, 75, and they live with bugs and things like that. So you can't do that with healthcare. You just it's not, even if you wanted to, you won't be able to pass regulations if you do it with that level of quality. But for developers and people like that are used to working on, let's push it out, and we will find out of the bugs, and then we'll take them out later. It's difficult to work like that. Took a long time for us to put the company in the culture that says, the right number of mistakes is zero, because we're dealing with human people, human lives here. So yeah, it's still a struggle. I don't think that we have solved it, but it's still a struggle.
Yeah. Quality is always there. So always compliant. And our last question is more of a fun one for you, Mariano. We'd
Sure.
love to ask each of our guests if we ran into you at a bookstore or your local library, in what section would we find you?
Huh. Funny, I probably I would say that's somewhere in the physics or mathematics or something like that.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. I learned so much about you and Axenya. Where can our listeners go to follow along on your journey and learn more about you?
No, thank you so much for having me. I'm in LinkedIn. It's pretty open. They can find me. They'll find even my cell phone number there. So just give me a call. I'm always happy to talk to anyone.
Great. Well, we'll get not your cell phone, but all those links posted in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of From Lab to Launch, brought to you by Qualio. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe and give the show a positive review. It really helps us out. For more information about Qualio, our guest today, or to be a guest on a future episode, please refer to the show notes. Until next time.